You know those people that you set a boundary with and they not only acknowledge you and act like they saw you and might even like validate you, and then 5 minutes later, 5 days later, the next time they have an opportunity, they cross the very same boundary. They show you, they see you, and they do it again. Or the people who they hear the boundary, they act like they understand the boundary, but they don't own it at all. And they say, well, that's your problem. You know, those situations, I'm going to help you handle that in a better way to keep yourself safe. And more importantly, or maybe just as important, to feel powerful, because you are actually more powerful than you think. There are people in this world, my mother being one of them. I've been no contact for well over 30 years. It was a blip 17 years in, but it was very short-lived. As somebody who has experienced a mother who's a sociopath and a narcissist, that's a person who would weaponize my hurts against me. So when she knew she hurt my feelings, she would do it harder. When she knew that when I would tell her I had a boundary, usually surrounding my children, because I didn't set them for myself, I didn't believe I deserved to have them, she would continue to cross it and even go bigger after that. And then you just have the run-of-the-mill people who don't take to boundaries well, or people that you are stuck in connection with because they come along with a group, or maybe it's in business, and you're trying to set boundaries and doing the same thing over and over again, definition of insanity, expecting a different result. I'm going to help you to change the result. It's called setting internal or external boundaries. If you have somebody that you're continually setting boundaries with and they're continually crossing them, I want you to stop setting boundaries with them. If you have somebody who is hurting you, well, really, I want you out of that relationship. But if you can't be, sometimes we can't. I want it for you, not for me, because we all deserve quality relationships. And every relationship that we have should have three things, in my opinion, included. And it is my standard. I want to feel safe, seen, and cherished. Not one of the three, not two of the three, but three of the three. And that being said, I recognize there are times where we have to interact with people who are toxic, who will continually cross boundaries. Maybe it's a business relationship like what I was talking about earlier, or it's somebody who comes with a crew of friends, and you shouldn't deprive yourself of all the other people because of one bad apple, right? So there are ways that you can empower yourself and keep yourself safe and set boundaries without the other person being the wiser, without them even having the ability to cross the boundary. I'm going to give you a few examples. I used to have a friend who was a social friend, like somebody that I liked doing like concerts and certain things with. And this was the kind of person who knew everything about everything and nothing about nothing. And this person had this habit that used to just drive me crazy. And for a while there, she would pull me around emotionally here and there because she would catch me off guard and get the better of me. And I didn't really want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because also she was connected to other people I'm connected to. So there was no real avoiding her, although I have on occasion had one person in a group where I've said, we're not friends, we can be cordial, but we're nothing outside of this. And I will set a heavy duty boundary on that one. And if they approach me, I say, hi, how are you? And I keep on walking, and I hold my boundary firm. So I have done that in certain situations, but I prefer not to have to get to that place if I don't have to, just because I want things comfortable, not just for everyone else, but for myself as well. So this person would, for example, say, pick a topic like online dating and go in and say, well, every guy is this and every person's that, and you shouldn't, like, what are you looking for? You're never going to find it. And just do this whole number around it. And I would be like, okay, so that's your experience with online dating. No, I've never dated online. And this is just an example. This was a running theme. And I would say to her, I don't really want to talk about topics in this manner. If you haven't had experience with it, then, I can't really take any advice from you or take you seriously. And you're judging me in a way and making decisions for me or trying to. Like, she'd be extremely pushy. We all have met people like this. I did that. She didn't stop. So then I set my internal boundary and I doubled down on my external boundary. She started to bring up a topic very similar to that one, where she had no experience whatsoever. She had no knowledge, hadn't read about it, hadn't researched it, didn't have a friend who was doing it, that sort of thing. And I looked at her and I said, I'm not going to engage in this topic. External boundary. She kept on going. Internal boundary. What do you think about that? She would say. I'm not engaging in this topic. External boundary. It happened a couple of times. Guess what? She doesn't do it anymore because I don't participate. I'm not saying she doesn't bring up topics anymore, but as soon as she sees me in that face of I'm not engaging and I've made it clear, she stops. And that allows me to have all the power in the room. Not that I'm looking for the power, but I'm looking to not be triggered or bothered or upset or drawn into drama. I'm looking to maintain control over my emotions, not allow somebody else to hijack them and annoy me. And it doesn't seem like a big deal. And in this situation, it kind of really wasn't. It wasn't like ripping my heart out, and clearly I didn't die from it. But being able to handle it means that when I'm in other interactions that might matter more, I know how to handle those situations, and I'm highly unaffected by other people's garbage. Like basically what I was telling her was she could talk to the mug, but she wasn't going to talk to this mug because I'm not participating. So that's an example of using an external boundary and an internal boundary altogether. Then you have your people that you can actually, set the external boundary with. I don't know that you need a lesson in that other than to say finding our voice can be very difficult. And I always ask myself a few questions when I'm mulling over setting a boundary. It doesn't always come naturally to me. And in the past, it never came naturally to me. Like if I was in a position where I had to set a boundary and I knew it ahead of time, I would spend days in rehearsal, what I call mock conversations, anticipating every possible outcome. Like the amount of energy I would expend and anxiety around setting this boundary because of my childhood lessons was like, I just can't even. I have complex PTSD. That doesn't help. What I've learned to do to make boundary setting easier, for me to find my voice easier, which now it pretty much flows and I don't have to do it so often, is I ask myself, what is the worst thing that can happen? They call me a jerk, or they judge me, they reject me, they abandon me. Okay. And am I going to die from that? No. Okay. Am I going to recover? Yes. What's the best thing that can happen? Well, one, in all situations, the best thing that can happen is I made my feelings known and I stood up for myself. So I'm winning right there out of the gate, no matter what the other person does. And the next best thing that can happen is that a deeper friendship is formed, or a relationship with that person, because they build safety in respecting my boundaries. If they don't build safety around my boundaries, if they don't respect my boundaries, if they don't show me safe, seen, and cherished, then I know who they are, where I stand, and that I need to either withdraw from that relationship or change the dynamic of it through my own behavior. I feel like I'm a shadow puppet here, by the way. There's a sun thing happening here. Yeah. So there's that. Anywho, we're going to go with it. I'm in the Canary Islands, in case anybody's wondering. Internal boundaries. When you know a person is not going to respond to your boundaries, and actually they are going to respond by weaponizing them or your hurt feelings or whatever it is, before you interact with that person, come up with your own game plan. I had someone who would bring up sore topics, or say a very narcissistic person, and it was a professional relationship and not a friendship, a friendship. outside of that. So there was some crossover personal and professionally, and it's somebody that I can't completely avoid. Pretty much now I can, but at the time I couldn't. And inevitably there would be something like, people were talking and I've always got your back, which is very triggering for me because of the fact that, I come from a narcissist sociopath mother who did that my whole life. Or, they would bring up someone I was in a relationship with in the past that hurt me greatly and start like trying to talk about them with me. And this is probably someone I haven't thought about in eons. And, I don't want to talk about it because it's one, none of your business. And two, it might be upsetting for me. It might be triggering, whatever it is. There would almost always be something that would happen that she would bring up to try to draw me in to this vulnerability so she could kind of poke around and see what else she could dig in for. We've all come across people like this, especially if you come from a system like I come from. I only have internal boundaries with that person because I've already told this person not to bring these things up. So sometimes what I'll do is when the whole, I got your back, I'm protecting you, I'll say to her, how are you protecting me? What are you protecting me from? That's going to shut her down. This is not about the internal boundary yet. That'll pretty much shut her down. She'll start doing word salad and whatever, and I'll just sit there very silently, watch her try to peel herself out of it, and then it'll likely kill the whole conversation, the whole trajectory of it. Or if she pulls the, so-and-so was saying without naming so-and-so, I'll say, if you can't give me their name, I'm not interested. Oopsie, guess what? Nameless. Or everybody, blah, blah, blah. Who's everyone? So calling that person out and looking for evidence of what they're talking about, and they're not able to go there, a lot of times that'll shut it down. You would be surprised how much they hate that. And the reason they dislike that so deeply is because now they're getting a clue that they're not hijacking your emotions and they are not the ones in control. And what does somebody who's looking to hurt somebody hate the most? Being out of control and not having that ability. You become boring to them at that point and no longer their target. There would be other instances in that same relationship where if they brought up, say, somebody from the past that I didn't want to discuss, they wouldn't leave it be. They wouldn't drop it. They wouldn't stop. And I would just already have it set up for myself that I respect my boundaries enough not to stay in proximity to that person. So I would just say, okay, well, that's all good. Have a great day. And I would leave. If I was in a situation where I was unable to leave, I would just simply not respond at all in the conversation, going back to the earlier internal or external and internal. The difference here is I'm not saying anything. I'm not letting them know it's bothering me. I'm not letting them see me sweat. It's more like I'm completely disinterested. Is this all you got? And you would be surprised if you can practice a deadpan, how uncomfortable that makes somebody who's looking to jerk your emotions around. You're basically using judo. You're using their own body weight against them when you do that. So internal boundaries, set yourself up for success. Know the people that you're going to interact with and make the decision before you go in. If certain, don't overthink it, don't overanalyze, don't ruminate. This is not that, but just kind of be proactive. If I know that I'm going to be with certain people who do certain things, I make the decision on how, it's kind of like gray rocking, how I'm going to interact with those people. They aren't going to change, but I can, and I will. And I do what I need to do to provide my own safety, to make sure that I am seen and that I also cherish myself in the process. What I look for externally is what I'm providing for myself internally. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you will be, not just with setting boundaries, but just with the way that you walk through life, and the tolerance for toxicity that you once had will diminish greatly. So thank you for being here with me. I hope this helps. If you have any questions about boundary setting or want to share a struggle that you're trying to overcome or work through, whatever it is, any comments at all, drop them. And I do read them. I do look through them. I try to respond to the ones that I can, and the ones that I can't, it's because I usually already have content related to it. But I am reading your comments, and more importantly, other people are as well. And that's what builds our community, is that relatability that we all have. Unfortunately, we come from a system and we share an experience that is a language of its own. And I say unfortunately because I wish there weren't so many of us. And well, I can say fortunately we found each other. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our community, and have a great day.